Hello, good morning, Cebu. Yeah, thank you very much, Francis. This is my first time in Cebu, but my second time in Philippines. I work in Indonesia, focused for doing web. So if you see my title over there, Developer Advocate Web Developer Relation, I'm a different team with Mani or Sami, maybe the person that you met before. Because I work with the web developer relation means I'm helping companies, developers to make sure they aware about new technology on the web and help you guys build your product for using the web technology. So today I will update and share some thoughts. What's the new thing happening on the web, and I hope you enjoy. So I will start with this. The last couple of years, the web platform tried to push a lot of new APIs. These APIs basically built for you developers, so you can build not only the website that show information, but also you can build like a very interactive and very engaging web app. Not only like a one-way interaction, but also like two-way interactions. A lot of new APIs now already adapt into different browsers. So previously, maybe whenever you like try to access the new website and you only able to access it through Chrome. But today, if you see the numbers from January 2018, the new APIs on the web now are already mostly adopted into the modern browsers compared with work only in Chrome. And it's very important to have the service workers. Anyone know service workers? So service workers is a super important component to help you build a modern website, because without service worker, you cannot do all this stuff. So we're going to talk about these things matters. So like at the home screen is like you can install the web app into your desktop or your mobile. Service worker also help you to build the push notification on web, and service worker also help you to using like payment requests and also credential management. I will tell you more about these things. And the good thing, service worker already work in all the browsers, not only Chrome. So you can use today's service worker and build modern experience on the web and working in all the modern browsers as well, including in iOS. And we know web is really good if you talking about the reach. Imagine like this, if you're talking about the native, you're always talking about like, hey, I have a new app, it's really good, try it. But whenever your friends or your families or anyone that you share about your app, they need to download it first before able to try it. It's different with the web because you can just share the link. You can just send to the group, like the WhatsApp group or Facebook group, and people can access it directly. And this is the most powerful thing about the web, because everyone can access it without anything to do before. Compared with the apps is really good on engaging. So, but today, web is different. It's not only really easy to reach people, but it's also very engaging and also interactive. And this is what we call progressive web app, or PWA. And the PWA basically is just better experience on using the web. So I think previous years, like 2010, Facebook mentioned the web is dead. So we can say now web is a new thing. And everyone crazy about the web because easy to reach, but also very engaging. And the experience that we mentioned above is, the first one is the super important one. That's why we put it at the first, is fast. Because the reason why this is so important, people doesn't want to access the slow web. And that's the first experience they will have whenever they access or open the URL. And if you are developers, it's really hard to achieve the performance. I'm helping 4 companies in Indonesia. Probably you know this, like Tokopedia, Bukalapak. That's a very 2 of unicorns in Indonesia. And I'm trying to help them to increase the performance of their website, but it's really hard for them. Even Bukalapak, they said like, oh, we cannot build a progressive web app because we have our old code base built with Ruby on Rails. And they said like, I think we're going to shift into progressive web app in 2020. Because like fix the old code, moving the old platform to the new like stacks, it's not that easier. So that's why the learning that we got from MAPS, Progressive Web App, the MAPS Go, it's if you really care about performance, you need to consider it from the beginning. You need to design it from the beginning. It's not something that you can achieve in the middle of development, but you really need to take it care from the beginning. The reason why it's really important because by average around the world, the average of the website now, whenever you open a website, it's like 1.5 megabyte. And this means like 15 seconds to load and interactive on mobile, on 3G. So imagine yourself, you open the website and you're only able to use it in 15 seconds. I don't know if you're patient enough to wait for 15 seconds. So, and usually people ask questions like, okay, how I can make my website fast enough? Only one receipt, just send us stuff. And I will talk later about this thing in another session if you want to know more. But this is really important. That's why it's really hard to make the web faster. Because whenever I mention about, hey, let's make the website faster, and they ask me like, what should I do with my website? And I ask like, oh, you just need to like throw away all the stuff you have on your website. And they're like, what? I need to throw these parts? And usually in the companies that become like a fight between teams, like the marketing teams, like, oh, I don't want to put away this part, and this is my part. Usually these become internal conversations. But I will not talk more about that one because let me share about one thing. Like in India, there's one taxi company, they're trying to build something focused on fast performance. So this is only able to do by designing a small size of the web app. So they built their website using Polymer web components with only 50 kilobyte per slot network. So if you compare with 1.5 megabytes, this is very small. And it's good because if you compare with iOS app they have and also the Android, it's like a 500 lighter than the iOS and 300 lighter on Android. And if you can make sure your website fast enough, that's actually make the users continue the journey to all the value you try to deliver to them. And to make sure the app is interactive enough, you also need to make the Progressive Web App to be integrated with the devices. So, you know, app is always good because you can have access to a lot of APIs on the devices, like sensors, camera, networks, and people say like, oh, website cannot do this kind of thing, but no. Today, you can access a lot of new APIs on devices on the web directly. So, for example, OVO, the bike sharing startups, they use geolocation to access the location where you can pick up the bike, for example, and also the camera API to scan the QR codes. So you don't need to add it just to scan the QR code today. And also, if we're talking about experience, if you want to make sure the experience is the same no matter what kind of condition of the network, no matter what kind of devices you use, you need to make sure your website is like fast enough in all devices, in all connections. So if you see the Ola taxi cab in India, no matter what kind of connection they have, they always have a good experience to access the web app. So when you open on 2G, it's still a little fast enough, like 3 seconds on the first load. The second load, it will be like 1.8 seconds. And this is very fast if you compare with 15 seconds on the previous experience. And that's bring a lot of engagement experience on the web. For example, by implementing progressive web app, Starbucks having 2 times daily and monthly active users because it's so easy to use. You don't need to download the app to use the Starbucks. Maybe not here, but in San Francisco, if you go to the Starbucks, you will queue with the others. Because in the morning, everyone want to get their coffee. And so easy, you just book your coffee and then select the shop that you want to go. And then you just come to the Starbucks and then you just pick up your coffee. That's it. By using the app, you can like cut the waiting time for your coffee in San Francisco. And it's so easy because you don't need to install anything. You just need to open the web. And the good thing with the developers, you have one code base for all the platforms. So iOS, Android, and including desktop. It's a really good thing because you can maintain only one code base and you don't need like big teams only to build with the different platforms. All this experience, it's bring 20% conversion for the companies after the switch to the progressive web app. And what about the desktop? So we're talking all this stuff because the bad experience actually starting on the mobile. In desktop, you don't have like limited memories or limited CPUs. But on desktop, of course, we need also to take care of the experience. So starting in Chrome, 70, like just released a month ago, if I'm not mistaken. So in Windows and Linux, you can install the web app in your desktop. So you can use it just like native app. Even the Microsoft now already provide universal apps based on the progressive web app. And the Mac support will also available in the next Chrome 72. So just be patient with it. And if you're talking about the desktop, what you can do actually with the native app on with progressive web app in the desktop. Imagine like you have different screens on the desktop. You can actually like utilize the big screen to provide more information. For example, this weather app, they use the widescreen to provide forecast for a week. But if you provide the responsive design, so you can reduce, it's like 7 days, you can reduce it to 5 days, the most important one, like the weekdays. And even you can make it smaller, so for the users who like to do multitasking on the desktop, they can like build weather app. Maybe weather app is not important to keep seeing on the desktop, but imagine if you work like this, and you build like a podcast player or a music player. You always want to have like a interface so you can switch whenever you want. And you can build this thing with Progress Web App, so you can have multitask desktop app with your Progress Web App. And you need to work with your designers because building a web Progress Web App is not only the developer things, but also like the whole product teams. You need to take care of what the value you want to offer to the users. And with all those capabilities, it means today we can build like super interactive and very engaging web app. And to show you more the capabilities of the web, I will share some stuff what you can do actually with a lot of new APIs on the web. Media is one really important part when you're talking about consuming content on the web, because 15% time people spend on the Chrome in Android is actually to consume the media, like audio and videos. And 20% of in desktop also used for consuming this media. And 30,000 years, it's video watch daily in Chrome. This means like we can say most of the time you use the web is actually consume this media. And what the developers can do to have better experience to consuming the media. The new API, for example, is Media Session API. This is actually very useful if you build like a podcast or music player, because just using the Media Session API, you can have a background playing of your audio, but you have the control or remote on your notification bar. So just like on Spotify, and then you can switch whenever you want just from notification bar. And also this is very interesting because sometimes you're watching a video and then someone like ping you on the WhatsApp or messages and you want to replay it, but you don't want to pause your video. So you can actually, with the web now, you can have picture in picture. So you can like reduce the size of your pictures, and then you can do other stuff, but the video still play over there. And this is built on native web API. And also a really good thing, imagine you want to build a games, or you want to build like Chromecast. How many of you have Chromecast? So imagine like you want to play video or you want to control something. So you can actually build like games with remote using the web, using the presentation API. So imagine you have like this, you have two screens. So you can open the controller on different devices, and then you can like put the receiver in another screen, and then you can just like remote control the display you have in another screen using the presentation API. If you use the Google Slide like I do, this one is actually using the similar concept. So you can have your presentation in different screen, but you can control from your own laptop, for example. And this whole new thing is actually a really good one. For example, if you check the Vimeo, Vimeo already use this for new features on the web. So you don't need to install Vimeo. You just need to open the web, and then you have like a good experience like you have on the native web. And this is really amazing thing for me because the WebAssembly actually it's something that's really new. And the good thing with WebAssembly, you can use the C library. If you are C developers, you can use C library in your web apps. And this is good because anything that really care about performance will have the advantage of this WebAssembly because it's like a binary code, the machine code that run very fast compared with JavaScript that need to be parsed, compiled, and then run. So if you build something that really performance sensitive, this is maybe your considerations. And it's a really interesting for me because I was moved from the back end to the front end because I was starting doing this gaming stuff on the web. And I know there's a some performance problem when you don't use these kind of things when you build your game. And the super cool thing, it's actually work already in all browsers. So you can start today and then build and work in all the browsers. The good thing with AutoCAD, you know AutoCAD is used by Architect to build the web. And the Architect is used AutoCAD like already like maybe 20 years ago. And they use the library in C and then port it and build a web app. So now everyone can use AutoCAD without download anything. And imagine you build like physics engines like this. It's really hard to have 60 frames per second in the web without the WebAssembly because to calculate the directions of all the sands over there, you need to use like a very good performance physics engines. So this one, the physics engines using the C built inside the WebAssembly, so you don't have the performance issue on using it. And you can actually like keep using it because all those sands over there is actually SVG DOM, which means a lot of objects that you need to calculate if you need to use it. And you don't need C only to build WebAssembly because you also use able to use Rust, Lua, Fortran, and other languages to build the WebAssembly modules. So let's talk about the conversion online. So in Indonesia, the average conversion in native 5 times bigger than web. The reason why this happened is because the companies not investing in the same amount of investing on the native because they doesn't know how to optimize the conversion in the web. And to help you, for examples, 28% cart in online e-commerce is abandoned because too complicated on checking out process. And 42% they not continue the things because it's really hard to fill the form whenever you check out. And 27% also is like very confusing because too many input fields you need to fill. And you need to like make sure the users know like which one the most important one and which one that mandatory. And to help you have better experience on checkout process, we already have the web payments that work across the browsers, which will standardize the checkout process to collect the data that you use for payment. And to show you how the experience, this is how it looks like. So whenever you buy something on the web, there is a standard form you can use to check out. And you can actually use your credit card or maybe like Google Pay, and it's seamless experience. And you can actually integrate with different payment systems like the bank, internet banking, for example, if you want. So this thing is actually not to replace your traditional checkout, but it's just like additional to help you with the next one, with the easier experience. And the next one is talking about sign up and sign in. So if you build a product, you always want to make sure your users is signed in because then you can understand the behavior of your users. But the issue with the password is like you have a lot of passwords to remember. And if you use your password like a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, that will be really weak and really easy to steal by the hackers. So what actually you can do on the web to make a good sign-in, sign-out? So the good security, good experience, and of course for the good developer experience is really important. So that's why in the web we already have the credential management API. Now you can actually use this API to build automatic sign-in. So you don't need to ask your user like, hey, please fill the username and password to sign in, but actually you can make them sign in whenever they already signed in before. And a new thing, now on the web, you can actually use devices like two-factor authentication using the security key. So you don't need to install any add-ons or extension to enable use the security key, or even in the Android, you can ask confirmation whenever you ask for payment. You can use the fingerprint to confirm if the user is actually the same person, or you can actually just ask them to log in with the fingerprint. So you don't need password anymore just to sign in the web. A new thing you wanna give better experience. Do you know this is actually a really like a real URL? So if you want to type this long URL, actually it will bring you to hotels.com. But if you have this URL and you keep telling everyone like, hey, I have a cool website, check this thing, and you ask everyone to type the URL, that's not really convenient. So that's the reason why we have Add to Home Screen. So you can access your progressive web app on your home screen in the mobile or your desktop screen. So you have the icon just like the native app. So you can just tap it without typing the long URL like before. And starting from Chrome 17, you need to have a proper way to show how to install to add the home screen. So in Instagram, they use this experience. So it provides a context like why you need to install the web app. So you can change the things and tell your user like, hey, do you wanna like easy to access your web app? You can use this thing and just install it. And then you will have the icon in your home screen. The last one is about VR and AR. So if you're talking about VR, it's actually about things that you can take you everywhere, but augmented reality or VR is actually bringing something around to you. And last year we have the Web VR API, But today we're talking about WebXR, which is replace the last API we have. And the new API is actually really cool because you can build a lot of new contents on the web. So for example, if you build like information like a blog, for example, you can actually provide them a magic window. So people you can tell like, oh, Cebu is really cool place to visit, and then you can give them like a 360 videos where people just go around and see what the things around them. And you don't need to install anything because this is already built inside the browsers. And also for the shopping experience, if you, for example, want to buy some furniture, of course you want to know like how the furniture is, like the chair, the table, if you put it into your room, for example. Then you can just measure things. Oh, from here to there is like 5 meters, for example. You can use the web API just to measure things and build this kind of experience. Or even you wanna like using for education content, or even just for funny things, like put some funny stuff over there and then playing around with the web app. But with all those new things on the web, I believe you as a developers always want to give a better experience for your users. So please be careful with a lot of new power, because the power always comes with responsibility. Because if not, this is probably will happen with your web app. We don't want this kind of experience for you. Imagine you open a website and this is what happens. Because if this happens, and this is actually really happened today, if you open the website, it's always like this. A lot of notification, a lot of cookies, access, and those kind of things always happen because the developers sometimes doesn't really care about the performance, not really care about the experience. Whenever there's a new API, they just use it without responsibility. So that's what all the new stuff on the web that may be important for you. I hope you enjoy it. And if you want to check what actually really happening on the web, you can just go to our website, developers.google.com/web, and you can find a lot of new cool stuff on the web that you can use starting today.